Thank you, Todd. I want to first say that I'm extremely humbled by this opportunity to introduce one of this year's inductees into the Hall of Fame. Our inductee was a veteran of World War II. He's part of the Great Generation. Matter of fact, he was a charter member of our organization. In 1984, he was our Builder of the Year. That was 30 years ago. He was a second-generation builder. His father built a large part of Chevy Chase under developer Henry Clay Simpson. And he would continue the legacy not only of building, but becoming the developer of many fine neighborhoods, some of which were adjacent to where his father had built. His longtime employees, Barbara Johnson and Russell Allen, told me that he most proudly identified himself as a builder-developer. And developed he did. As a youngster growing up in the Pace Creek corridor, me and Wayne, we lived in Gainesway. So we found it hard not to be touched by all that J.W. Davis had built. I remember the first Baskin and Robbins to ever come to Lexington was in J.W. Davis's shopping center. What a treat. A shopping center that was upscale as the neighborhoods that surrounded it. The neighborhood had its own club and pool, the Lansdowne Club. This innovation, the neighborhood pool and club, is imitated throughout Lexington now. It's pretty commonplace. But nobody can duplicate the Lansdowne Club. I can recall many a big blue blast at the Lansdowne Club. J.W., like his father before him in Chevy Chase, built and developed quality neighborhoods that are to this date the most desirable addresses in Lexington. Lansdowne was followed by Shadeland, Lansdowne Merrick, Shadeland East, Rabbit Run, and Continental Tower. But J.W., like any good builder or developer, cared about the community. Barbara has told me that, and Russell has told me that, and Hunter has told me that. Whether it was a shopping center, a hotel, or a home, he filled the needs of the community. Russell, sitting down talking to him, and Barbara told me that when he was building in Frankfort, he discovered that there were no homes for the faculty at Kentucky State University. So what did he do? He built a neighborhood. Finally, I like to say that I believe that honoring our past leaders is important to our association. We need to thank our inductees for what they have done for our association, and I wish that we had done this sooner for J.W. But it's important for our present membership because it's for the inspiration that they provide for us. So before we view this video honoring J.W. Davis, I'd like to leave you with a quote by our sixth president, John Quincy Adams. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. J.W., you were a leader.
I was from Winchester, and I Went away my first year of college and came to UK my second year. Had a blind date with J.W. I have known him since I was 18 years old, and I'm 85, so there's just not been a day without him, I don't think. I can't remember a day without him. We've had some great times, and he's loved the home builders. He and CB, I think, were the first. One or the other of them was president, the first president. And J.W. took him very seriously. We were in between houses, and we had 4 children, new baby. Hunter was about a year and a half, and Ye and Becky were 4 and 5 or 4 and a half and whatever. And this was a little a house with a carport and a kitchen right off the carport. And J.W. brought home a big fat goose and tied it in the carport. And he had to keep that goose until he got 2 new members of the Home Builders Association. I had a goose a long time, and that's no fun to have a goose in your carport.
The things that have taken place at Lansdowne is hard to explain, and you had to live through them to really appreciate them. J.W. was one of these men that had this wonderful sense of humor, and he saw all the funny things, and he would come in all excited about something that happened in Lexington and everything. And it's just really been a fun ride. It's never been like working for someone. It's always been part of their life. And that's the kind of man he was.
Since college, 1946, Davis had a car. Most of us didn't have a car. And he would go by every morning and pick up his future wife, Hunter, off of 3rd Street. She had a sorority over there that she was, I think it was a Chi-O, and and he'd go by over and pick him up and pick up the girls, and they charged him all a nickel for a ride. Davis is always sharp with money. I bought 1 section from him, and it didn't have a sewer. And after I bought it, I had to put the sewer in, and it was a section where you couldn't get a machine in. Had to do it by hand. That was a little expensive.
I can remember the first time that my dad and I ever did business together. I was about 12 or 13 years old, and my dad came to me that summer and said, "Hunter, would you like to make some money this summer mowing grass for me?" And I said, "Sure." I didn't have anything to do, so he said, "Well, let's get in the car and go down to Sears and pick out a lawnmower." Well, of course, I immediately went over to the riding lawnmowers, and my dad looked at me and said, "That's not going to happen. You get a push mower. It's be good exercise." So we got the lawnmower and went back to his office, and he handed me a legal pad, and he said, "Now, keep track of all your time, all your mowings, and I'll pay you at the end of the month." So I said, "Fine." So after the month, I guess I made about $25 or $30. So I'm all excited, and I take it into his office, and that was a lot of money for a kid back in the 60s. So I handed him the bill, and he said, "Very well," and he handed me $10. And I said, "What's the deal here?" And he said, "Well," I said, "Where's the rest of the money?" And he says, "Well, you need to pay down on your lawnmower." And I thought, what? I'm getting screwed here. And then he looked at me and he said, "Son, this is your first lesson in overhead." And today, that was a very valuable lesson. But he did eventually give me the rest of the money.
Of course, I started with the Lansdowne Club. When I came to work at the Lansdowne Club, Lansdowne Drive stopped there at the club. And I thought, my God, I'm not going to work out here. It's too far out in the country. But, it turned out, and the city, we caught up with the city grew to us or whatever. I never thought I'd work for them this long. But, it wasn't just an employee. We were more like friends. And, you know, we did a lot of things together.
Well, there's so many wonderful stories. He and his partner, Mr. McKeeshan, they were a wonderful pair because one of them was very outgoing and as you say, did a lot of humorous things, and the other was a little more serious and took care of more of the paperwork part of it. But they were a wonderful pair, and as you know, were very, very successful in land development and building. And the Lansdowne clump at that time became sort of a center of activity, particularly in the building industry. And all of the contractors and the subcontractors and developers just used to migrate down there. And so they had a bar and so forth. So after work, many people would go there. And of course, he would hold court. And that's how everybody really got to know each other.
No, Lansdowne Club was the only thing out here. It only had the largest swimming pool in Lexington. At Christmas time, we would hang ornaments on the tree, and we would bring a BB gun inside the club and 22 rifle, and we shoot balls off of it. Then we wind up repairing the walls after the holidays over. But yeah, we've done some crazy things over there.
One of the things we did that was probably one of the most interesting things, for some reason, we organized a Thanksgiving shoot. And we would go down to Lansdowne and meet down at Lansdowne about 9 o'clock in the morning. And it sometimes would be 40 or 50 people would meet, and then we'd go and we'd have somebody's farm. We would go shoot rabbits. And we would shoot rabbits for a couple hours, and then we'd have some libation and some little food. And theoretically, we had a rule that we would try to make everybody go home at noon because we didn't want to get in trouble with the wives for Thanksgiving. But we had so many occasions where not everybody went home, or not everybody went home in good shape.
He got a really good price on a load of lumber. This would be in the early 50s. And we had a house then, the one he built, the first one he built for us on Chinook, and we were the last house on Chinook in the 400 block. And so, but it needed to be inside, not cured, but it needed to be in there for the winter. So we moved it in the dining room, and it went almost up to the ceiling. It went almost to the ceiling, but that was just about the only way you could get from the bath. It was a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and the dining room and the kitchen. And to get to the kitchen, you had to go through the dining room. When we go through the dining room, you had to climb over the lumber. That was just another little perk.
One of the funny things is actually about his wife, Mary Ann. He says when he started building, of course, on a shoestring, he says, he would go and take Mary Ann, the builders would build, and then at night, he'd say, come on, we got to go to the park, wherever they were building, and he'd hand her a nail sack and a hammer and have her put more nails in the walls, in the studs and everything. I actually have a picture of Mary Ann doing that, looking at her finger, which I'm sure she hit the nail, the hammer on her nail. But that was him. He felt like that nobody put enough nails in anything. He was one of these people that if there was a piece of board 12 inches, he knew you should save it because there was a reason that you're bound to be able to use it again. He was that way. He was very frugal, but yet he was generous beyond almost to a fault at times.
Well, when we were building the house, when he was building the house on, I've forgotten which one, but it's as much as 10 years ago, well, 20 years ago. And people were stealing, come around at night, and he had all his things out. So J.W. just got a pillow and his shotgun, spent the night sleeping on the grass, and nobody comes around and steals from you if you're going to be laying there with a shotgun in your lap.
I guess one of the things was Mr. McKeeshan, his partner, was very more to dress up and everything. Well, J.W. would say, now, why would I go in all dressed up? They won't think I need to borrow any money. And so, I mean, CB'd have on a suit and a tie and everything. Not J.W. He'd have on his, he was really known for his khakis. He would have on his khakis and his shirt, and that was his statement to me. why would I go in looking like I don't need to borrow money?
He was a really good professional builder, and I guess to say he was a builder's builder. He was a developer, builder of quality, and anything he did, I like to think anything he did in his life was quality, and he made a significant contribution to our industry.
J.W. is actually who hired me. I came on a Saturday. I was working somewhere, and I told him I couldn't come except on a Saturday. He said, well, that's fine. So we met at the office there at Lansdowne, and he interviewed me, and I could never forget. He said to me, he says, now I need to tell you right now, he says, if four-letter words bother you, this probably isn't the place for you to work. So I said, well, my daddy was a sailor, so they're probably not going to bother me. And then he likes to tell it on me. He said, it wasn't a month till something went wrong, and he heard me out there. He said, nope, they don't bother her. So, that's the kind of relationship we had. The home building end of it, he was so proud of being a home builder. He always was proud of that. And he kept his home builder's dues up to the very end. I know I said to him, do you want to renew this again? Of course I do.
The most famous story of J.W. is the one about the hammock. He came home late one night, real late, and Hunter met him at the door and said, Davis, where have you been? He said, well, I came home and it was so nice. I got in that hammock out there between those two oak trees. And she said, I put that hammock in the garage 3 weeks ago.
And he said, well, I got home about midnight, but he said I didn't come in. I lay out in the hammock and looked at the stars and fell asleep. So I didn't come in the house till about 4 o'clock. She said, is that right? He said, yeah, that's the way it was. And she said, well, I've got something I got to tell you. And he said, what's that? She said, I took the hammock down a week ago.
He said, that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
He said, that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
And he said, that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
J.W., thank you for taking me as a very, very young woman and allowing me to grow old with you and still be a part of your life.
To tell Mary Ann and Hunter, they know how good of friends we were. And I'm so proud of J.W., and it was a very wonderful, loyal friend all these years, and I miss him very much now. And we all know he's somewhere raising heck with somebody. I don't know exactly where he is, but wherever he is, there's a bunch of happy people around him.
I remember once before the home builders honoring J.W. for something that's been a long, long, long time ago. And I think this is an awfully nice thing that you all are doing. We appreciate it. My family appreciates it. Thank you.